In this lesson, we are learning about angle relationships, primarily about complementary and supplementary angles. There are several vocabulary words that we will need to learn for this lesson. Let's start with complementary. The first word is complementary angle. A complementary angle is two angles whose measurements are equal to 90 degrees. Okay? And so remember, that is two angles. Supplementary angle, two angles whose measurements are equal to 180 degrees. And now we have terms you should know. Obtuse angle, acute angle, and right angle. Please write all of these vocabulary words in your toolbox and write the definitions in your notes section. Okay, we're going to start with the supplementary angle. The definition for supplementary angle is two angles whose measurements are equal to 180 degrees. So first we have here an angle. And what we will need to do is take our protractor, and here is your protractor here, and we are going to measure this angle. So let's talk about how to measure an angle. I'm going to take my protractor and I am going to make sure the vertex of my angle, which is this point right here, is right lined up with this intersection of my protractor. So I'm going to put it there. And now that it's there, I need to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it so that this line, I'm going to rotate it so that this line here is going to be my baseline. And you know, the base means the bottom, or the bottom line, okay? And so that baseline, I need to line it up with the 0 right here. Notice it says 0 or 180. But because we are starting with the baseline, it's going to be 0. So I will refer to this line as my baseline. So I'm going to rotate my protractor now so that my baseline is at 0. Oh, made it bigger. Didn't mean to do that. All right. So there you go. Now my baseline is it's at 0. Okay, so my baseline is at 0, and now I simply want to find the adjoining line, which is this line right here, okay? And this will give me my angle measurement. So from the baseline all the way to this line, it lets me know how wide my angle is. And so now I can count. I see that I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Well, this is clearly not a 90-degree angle. It's much wider than that. So I'm going to use the numbers at the bottom at this time to finish measuring my angle. So I have 90, I have 100, 110, 120, and 130 degrees. So this angle measurement here is 130 degrees. Okay? And I know that it's 130 degrees because why? Absolutely. It's greater than 90. So I'm using the bigger numbers here. I'm not using the top numbers. Okay? Because those are less than 90. And this angle opens up way more than 90 degrees. Okay, so now we're going to measure a second angle that I have created. And here is the second angle right here. And all right, so I'm going to move my protractor to that second angle, and I'm going to line it up. Remember, when you line it up, you want your vertex to be right here on this intersection, and you want your baseline, which is here, to be at 0. So I'm going to line this up. Okay, so now it's lined up. I made sure I put my baseline at 0, and so there it is there. And this point here is on the intersection. This is my vertex. Now notice that it's not on the 0 over here, but there is also a 0 on this side of my protractor. So I can, rotate it and turn it around. So now I need to measure from the 0, from the baseline, all the way up to the stop number or the adjoining line here. So what I have is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Well, you're saying, well, why isn't it 150? Well, look at this angle. This is not an obtuse angle. This is an acute angle. So how could it be more than 90 degrees? So I don't want to use these numbers here because they're greater than 90 degrees. So you really have to decide what numbers to use. Do you use your larger numbers? Do you use your smaller numbers? Well, always ask yourself, are you dealing with an acute, obtuse, or right angle? Okay, so you already know right angles. So I'm dealing with an acute angle. I'm definitely going to use the smaller numbers here. Okay, so this is a 50-degree angle. Go ahead and write 50 degrees on your paper. So now I have two angles, and they're supplementary because the definition is two angles, and this is angle 1, and this is angle 2. Two angles whose measurements is equal to 180 degrees. So if I take 130 degrees and I add it to 50 degrees, it's going to give me 180 degrees. And so that would be a supplementary angle. Two angles that equal to 180 degrees. All right, let's go to complementary. Okay, so here we have complementary angles, which is two angles whose measurements are equal to 90 degrees. And so we're going to measure this first angle following all the rules that I just showed you for the other ways to measure angles. So here's my protractor. Get that intersection on the vertex. Make sure it's at 0. And it looks like I have a measurement here, and that's an acute angle. So my measurement from here to here, it looks like it's going to be 0, 10, 20, and 30 degrees. It's not going to be 150 degrees, okay? It's going to be 0, 10, 20, 30 degrees. All right. So, okay, I've created my second angle, and now I'm going to measure it. And notice that it is turned a little awkward. So I'm going to choose my baseline. My baseline could be either one of these lines here. It could be this line or it could be this line. I think I would like my baseline to be this line here. So I am going to pretty much rotate my protractor so that my baseline lines up with my 0. And put the vertex there with the intersection. And now I have measured it. So from the baseline all the way to the adjoining line, my angle measurement, it opens up to be 50 degrees. Okay, so that's 50 degrees. Go ahead and write 50 there, and you are done. Okay, and so that's 50, that's 30. And so here's my question. If I add 50 and 30, does that give me a complementary angle, which has to equal to 90 degrees? Absolutely not. That does not give me a 90-degree angle. That gives me an 80-degree angle. So that means these two angles here are not complementary to each other. They are not complementary to each other because in order to be complementary, they must add up to 90 degrees. So we're going to create another angle that will make this true because we want two complementary angles. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to measure the two angles here. So here's my protractor. Let's go ahead and line them up. And rotate that protractor. Get that baseline at 0. And I'm looking at a 60-degree angle here. And let's measure this one here. And here I'm looking at a 30-degree angle. So I have a 60-degree angle and I have a 30-degree angle. So here I'm going to write 60 degrees. Here I'm going to write 30 degrees. And if I have a 60-degree angle and I add a 30-degree angle with it, that is truly going to give me a 90-degree angle. And so therefore, this is a true statement. Two angles, angle 1 and angle 2, you put them together and it will give you a 90-degree angle, which is complementary. Two angles that will equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so let's look at a possible problem that could be on your STAR test. So this problem says, what is the number of degrees in the measure of angle A? Well, let's identify angle A. This is angle A right here. Okay, so this is angle A right here. And that's an ugly identification, but we know that inside of a triangle, all of the angles should equal to 180 degrees. So a triangle should equal to 180 degrees. So we know that. And they're telling us that we already have this angle here that is 71 degrees. And I just need to know what this angle is. So I'm going to use my understanding of complementary and supplementary angles to find this angle here. So watch what I do. 180 degrees creates a straight line. So I notice that this is a straight line. So this is a 145 degree angle. And so if I add this angle with it, it should equal to 180 degrees because that makes a straight line. So let's go ahead and do the math. 180 degrees, take away 145 degrees. Go ahead and borrow. That's going to leave me with 35 degrees. So I just figured out that this angle here is 35 degrees using what I've learned about complementary and supplementary angles because that's a straight line. Now, I know that this is 71, that's 35, and I know that this entire triangle should equal up to 180. So now I'm going to figure that out by doing the math. So I'm going to add up 71 plus 35 and get the answer to that. That's 106, and I know that 106 is what I have with these two angles here, this angle and this angle, which is 106. So if I subtract that from 180, I'm going to do that now. That's going to give me what's left over. Okay, borrow 7, carry. That's going to give me 4 and 74. So that's going to give me 74 degrees. So now I just figured out that this angle is 74 degrees. So I would write 7, 4 here and shade that in and shade this in. Don't have to put zeros there. 74 degrees is my answer. Voila, I'm done. Put that on your Cornell notes.